Hey everyone, welcome to Michigan Out of Doors. I'm Jenny Olson and we've got another brand new show for you this week. And Jimmy and Jordan have been working on some other great stories for us too this week.
Well, that's right, Jenny. We do have a few more things on this week's show, and hopefully you're going to learn a little bit. We're going to sit down with an airgun specialist, learn a little bit more about what those guns can and cannot do. It's a very interesting piece. You won't want to miss that. Lots of good stuff on this week's show. You stay tuned. I'm Jimmy Gretzinger. It's time for Michigan Out of Doors.
From the first spring rains to the soft summer breeze, dancing on the pine forest floor, the autumn colors catch your eyes. Here come the crystal winter skies. It's Michigan, Michigan out of doors. Someday our children all will see this is their finest legacy, the wonder and the love of Michigan. As the wind comes whispering through the trees, the sweet smell of nature's in the air. From the Great Lakes to the quiet stream, shining like a sportsman's dream. It's the love of Michigan we all share.
All right, well, we are here today with Chris Turek, and we are going to talk air guns galore today. We're going to learn everything there is to learn about air guns, hopefully. Chris, just tell me, how did you kind of get into this kind of hunting and this kind of shooting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up hunting and having my uncle and my dad teach me all about marksmanship. And you know, growing up with shotguns and rifles, I really wanted to get into something that kind of pushed that concept of marksmanship forward, but that I would be able to use it for hunting.
Okay.
And so, you know, we all grew up, you know, playing with BB guns and rifles and air rifles, and had my dad, that's how he taught me how to shoot, was with a 22 Crossman, old 1986 air rifle. And so, you know, I wanted to be able to do something but not have to spend so much money on ammunition.
Yeah, so before we get into the nuts and bolts and how these things work and all that kind of stuff, they were legal for a little bit, then they were not legal, and now they are. Kind of walk me through where we're at and what calibers can be used for deer hunting here in the state.
Absolutely, yeah. So here in the state of Michigan, you use a 35 caliber and higher big bore air rifle to hunt deer with. And you can hunt with those during the regular firearm season. What's cool about that is you can actually use them throughout the entire state. So there is it's not north of a certain line. You can actually use them throughout the entire state. One of the criteria, though, is it has to be charged from an external source. So a lot of us, we remember the old pump up kind of air guns. So it actually has to be pumped with either something that looks like a bicycle pump, but most guys will use something like a scuba tank to pump them up with.
And how many shots can you get out of one of these? I mean, if you were going to take it into the woods, 2 shots, 3 shots, 10, what's the normal?
Yeah. So on the 357, which is the one that I typically use, you can get a good 6 to 10 shots off of a fill. And when I say a fill, these charge up to 3,000 PSI. So at 3,000 PSI down to 2,000 PSI is typically where you want to keep them to keep that accuracy. And so with this one, you get, you know, good maybe 6 to 10 shots.
So you're not lugging your scuba tank out.
Right.
Right. And they have little ones too, right?
Yeah. They make little carbon fiber tanks that weigh like 3 pounds that you can put into a backpack and hook it up as well.
And so before we start shooting, is there advantages to using these, disadvantages? I know there's somewhere between a crossbow and a rifle. Why do guys even want to do this?
Exactly. I mean, one of the advantages is, yes, the gun may be a little bit more of an investment up front, but if you want to go out and shoot a lot with these, the ammunition is just so much less expensive. There's a lot of guys out there that actually cast their own rounds. And so you make up for the cost difference, obviously, in the ammunition. And so I personally choose to use something called the Aero Magnum Devastators, which are made by a company who they hand select every round to make sure it's perfectly balanced. So you know every shot is going to be dead spot on accurate. So as far as advantages go, I was doing it because the cool factor. I thought it was a really interesting sport to get into. I'm going to be archery hunting with a crossbow for the first time this year, which is something new for me. So I was trying to kind of get into something different than the typical shotgun hunting that I had been in the past.
And these things are, I mean, really what kind of drew us to you was that you sent us a video of you shooting a golf ball at 350 yards, right?
Right.
I mean, these things are really accurate.
Absolutely accurate and extremely powerful. That's kind of really what got me into it. I was dabbling in it, but once I got into the Airgun Depot Long Ranger contest, and I was able to hit that golf ball, that challenge was just so much fun. I was hooked, and I got my family involved, and it's been pretty fun.
The shrouds that are on, are these silencers on these guns, or what's because they're kind of a cool looking gun.
What you see there actually on the end is a shroud to help stiffen the barrel. It just helps with accuracy.
Okay.
But they do come in a suppressed model, which brings the decibels probably down to about the level of maybe the sound of like a door closing. So it's not completely silenced, but it's a lot quieter.
And these do not fall into the same categories as suppressors for my 270 or 243 or that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So these are actually recognized. These are not firearms. Okay. So the federal law and the state law sees these as non-firearms. So they actually don't fall into those rules.
Okay. Well, let's throw some lead down range here.
Awesome. So on this model, this is a single shot model. Other companies do make repeaters, but this one is a single shot model. So the breech opens just like that. Okay. And then you take your round, and this is a Aero Magnum 357, 128 grain hollow point. Okay. So you put it in there, and you just put it in there finger tight, and close the chamber. So on this, the safety features, the safety is automatically engaged whenever you do cock it. So that just cocked it and put the safety on at the same time. Okay. Yep. So.
And you already have air in it?
I do, but let's go ahead and top her off. So there's two different ways that guys like shooting these. If you're doing a lot of long range shooting or like a sustained target practicing, they do something called tethering. And by tethering, you just take your air source, you hook it onto your rifle, and you open up your scuba tank. And what that does is it keeps it at a constant pressure. Okay. So if you imagine or compare it to, let's say, black powder muzzle loading, this would be like putting the exact same amount of black powder into every single shot. Versus if I were to take this off, every shot is going to have a lesser and lesser amount of air pressure each shot. And so your point of impact is going to change a little bit.
No way! Where do these fall in? There's rifles that we can typically use, there's crossbows. Is this in that gap somewhere? Kind of explain to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I get that question a lot. So typically this rifle here, the 357, is shooting at about 250 to 300 foot-pounds of energy. Okay. So if you compare that to archery, the most powerful bow or crossbow out there is probably going to be about 80 to 110. So this is typically between 3 to 4 times more powerful than any archery equipment out there.
Okay, but it's not in the same range as a regular firearm.
No. If you're talking, let's say, like a 308 or a 30-06, I mean, those things are pushing 1,000 plus foot-pounds of energy per shot.
Okay. So 3 to 4 times the force of a crossbow.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Nice. Okay. And how far would you shoot a deer?
Right. So you brought up before, yes, I have hit a golf ball at 350 yards, but I would definitely never take a shot at a deer at that range. Typically, I would only take a shot 100 yards and in. Both accuracy, consistency of your shot, and also that foot-pounds of energy by the time that round gets to the deer. You want to make sure you're carrying as much energy as possible. So 100 yards and in.
Thanks for joining us this week for Michigan Out of Doors. Make sure you check us out online next time you get a chance. You can do it a couple of different ways on our website at michiganoutofdoorstv.com or on social media at Michigan Out of Doors TV. We're on social media every few days letting you know where we are and where we're headed next. And this time of year, with all the hunting and fishing seasons in full swing, we are all over the map. Make sure you check us out whenever you get a chance on social media. We've got a lot of fun headed your way this fall.
Well, that's right, Jenny. So much good stuff coming over the next several weeks. A lot of brand new things, and there's just so much happening around the great state of Michigan. Get out there and enjoy it. And hey, if we don't see you in the woods or on the water, hopefully we'll see you right back here next week on your PBS station.